Okay, Megavanan everyone, and welcome to a little discussion video, or I guess a comparison video between Path of Exile 2 and Diablo 4. I came across this, this kind of review, or rather discussion. It came up on my phone when I was scrolling through, when I do a lot of times when lying down in bed, I scroll through my phone, looking through YouTube videos and just stuff that's on Google, and this came up, a review by Shuni, okay, and it says here, Path of Exile 2, just a poorer Diablo 4. I don't know if this is coming up, okay, but you can look for it yourself if you can't see it, if the text is too small. Says, honestly, I don't get the hype around Path of Exile 2. Looking at the trailers and gameplay, it's just a network of the old game with a few cosmetic changes. The only thing they've done is add new animations and improve the graphics. But compared to Diablo 4, it looks bland. Even Blizzard, with all its flaws, manages to create more stylish and polished games. And why split PoE into two parts? Why not just update the original, which I think was what they were planning for, like a few years ago when this news came out. It seems like grinding gear games just wants to grab more money without offering anything truly new to players. It all feels like a step backward, too much hype, but in reality, the same boring mechanics. Do you seriously think this is the future of RPGs? And honestly, how are 400k people playing this every day? I just don't see the appeal. Are people really desperate for an ARPG that they settle for the grindy, outdated mess? Before anyone says, nice bait or trolling, I haven't even played Path of Exile. Well, see, there's the problem, but I've watched plenty of streams and videos to try and understand the appeal. From what I've seen, it just looks overwhelming, clunky, and unnecessarily complicated. If there's something I'm missing, I'm open to hearing it, but so far, I just don't get it. Edit. Just because you use a jester award doesn't mean you're right. Don't bother trying to rile me up because it's not a good look. I don't understand that last bit. What jester award? I don't understand what any of that is. But why is everyone enjoying something I haven't even tried? Stop it. So these are people that have, replied to this guy. Here's another guy, quoting what he wrote, and replies, "You're wrong on so much, but I expected as much since you've already admitted to not playing Path of Exile. And no, anime profile picture equals your opinion irrelevant." Another one, "Well, maybe I haven't played, but if I don't like what I see," he's replying here, Shuni, "maybe I haven't played, but if I don't like what I'm seeing, I must be missing something." So he's trying to defend what he's saying. I must be missing something, right? Maybe 400k people are just caught in some mass delusion, thinking the grindfest is worth it. Guess I'll watch more streams and figure out why it's so loved. Or maybe I just don't get the trend of 10-year-old games still being cool. Okay, and he's another guy combating Shuni and quoting him. "What happens when big GGG hypes this game up before EA early access and everyone toots their horn saying it's the second coming of Christ?" I don't get that, but most people are addicted to dopamine, playing family-friendly games like League of Legends. Good games will never be in mainstream, as most of humans are gray and normies, casuals and people without even their own personality. People don't want to learn deep mechanics and think even a little bit. There are good games for people who enjoy their dopamine boosters, like Diablo 4, Immortal, and people who like games like Souls-like, when action comes not from dopamine boosters, but by fighting with overwhelming hard encounters and make them kneel before you. When one say power is killing 10,000 small enemies, clicking one button, the other will say, I have spent 12 hours in the fight, but I have killed God. These posts are the best in helping fill up my block list. Okay, well, I played a little bit of Diablo 4, and I've been a fan of Diablo series, of course, in the mid-late 90s. When the first Diablo came out, I thought it was quite cool. I stayed up until the sun, came up. It was one of those, and I thought it was super great graphics, and just I've not seen or played anything like it. And then, of course, Diablo 2 came along, and I was addicted to that. When I would play those, especially early on when the game was still new, I would try to role play everything, and I do it. I just don't go for trying to like farm for gear. I just whatever gear I got along the way and whatever I got from the shops. Basically, I would just play it like any old RPG that I would play, like a Skyrim or Morrowind. At the time, no Skyrim, but like a Daggerfall or a Might and Magic or or a Morrowind. Then of course there came a certain point when you start playing with a lot of people. You realize all that's left to do is to grind. That could be the similar case with Path of Exile 2, but I'm not even near endgame, and I'm playing it and enjoying it and role playing it the way that I played the first few Diablo games, and the way I would play to this day, like Skyrim and Baldur's Gate 3, games like that. The thing about 4 is, and this also contributes to my thoughts and feelings on it, is because the amount I paid for it. I paid the one of the elite or deluxe editions of it, where it was close to $100. I think it was like the $89.99 one, and brought the price up to around like 93 or 94, something like that, so close to $100, and I felt it just wasn't worth that. So that also gives me a bad feeling about it too, about the game. And I started playing it for a while. It was pretty interesting, the whole thing with Lilith, right? I haven't beaten it. I haven't even gotten my horse. I'm still in the first act, but I felt like I played enough, with looking at that skill tree, and just something about it. It didn't draw me in or hold my attention to want to continue. Path of Exile 2 is different. Number one, it's new to me. Path of Exile 2, did I say, or 1? But 2. 1, for some reason, didn't do it for me, but that's okay. I won't talk about that. It's 2, where it's at for me. And all those various different NPCs, talking to them, even though you don't really manipulate what they do or dictate whether they live or die. They're just there mainly to give you information and background and lore on the world. I like that because it's all something new, and it seems like there's a lot more topics that you can ask about and learn about the lore, like at least 4 or 5 different things, and it gets bigger and bigger as you progress with the story and the quest, and I do like that. Just kind of like with Diablo 2, in Diablo 1, you talk to the NPCs up in town, like in Tristram or in Lut Gholein or Rogue Encampment and all of that. You speak to the NPCs, but it's just very limited questions you can ask them, and you don't have to ask them all if you don't like. But I usually do, just because I want to fill in the lore and because it's new to me. and so I feel as if it's a better game. I wouldn't say better game, but more interesting game. From in that regard, because things are new. When it comes to the gameplay, I feel it is a better game because. Well, was I able to dodge roll in Diablo 4? I think maybe I was. Here you can dodge roll, but I feel like the enemies, and I think they kind of did a similar thing with, in Diablo 4 with the bosses, but how they're saying with Path of Exile 2, they added a lot of roguelike, or soul-like kind of gameplay, like Elden Ring or Dark Souls. I've never played any kind of soul-like game, any of those kind of soul-like games, but if you kind of think about it, if this what makes a soul-like is where the enemy or the boss has some sort of pattern, and you can't just kind of beat them to death and just kind of stand there or move to the side and beat them to death. They have a certain pattern that can push you back. Like, for example, maybe they I don't know, they do a sweeping move, which is an AoE attack, and then they cover themselves up to block, and then they roll towards you, and then they repeat, and then it starts to kind of change up their tactics depending upon how many hit points they have left, that kind of thing. If you look at games like Witcher 3 and even some of the older ones, and I think even certain games on the PlayStation, they do that kind of thing. They did it. So in a way, there's a little bit of roguelike in that too. Diablo 2 and 3, there wasn't really a pattern, and if there was, it wasn't really, it wasn't changing up as much as this. You could still basically just kind of roll and hit them. You don't have to really memorize their attack pattern, to prevail in combat. Here you kind of do. You do have to roll. You do roll a lot. And you do have to utilize, different kind of skills. You can't necessarily stick to the one, the one kind of build. You might, what works on maybe the trash mobs or on one boss might be different set of skills for this kind of boss. So I do kind of like that. I've played enough to notice that, and I really like that. So it's different. And I feel as if too that people don't have to. Why does it always have to be a competition? Why always compare Diablo 4 with D4 and PoE and PoE2, and they always have to speak badly about the other. It's kind of like going back over 10 years with. There was a whole argument thing. There was one guy, I think his name was Mr. Rage. I don't know what happened to him, but he was kind of funny, though. I don't know how serious he was, but he was comparing Dark Souls, the first one, original, with Skyrim, and saying how crappy Skyrim is and how much more fun and more difficult and challenging Dark Souls is. And that might be the case, but they're two separate kind of games. Dark Souls, you cannot role play in Dark Souls the same way that you can role play in Skyrim. There really aren't NPCs for you to interact in the same way like that, and you can't really live another alternate life of becoming either a maid or a peddler or a traveling merchant or just an adventurer or a tomb raider or anything like that, in like how you could in Skyrim or pretty much almost any other Elder Scroll game that you could, in when compared to Dark Souls or any other kind of roguelike. They're completely different. It's probably more closer to a roguelike, so that's why. So I felt there was no need. There's really no need to compare and talk shit about one game and just to praise the other. You can still like both. I still like the Diablo series. I still like it a lot. Maybe one day I'll give Diablo 4 another look, another chance. But really, I'm really invested in Path of Exile 2 and just getting lost and immersed in the lore and the different characters, which I like. And just like with Diablo 2 and 3, when you progress to different acts, there's a small handful of different NPCs, and there might be that one or two NPC that follow you from act to act. Cain, for example, right? But I just feel as if there's a bit more content and substance with the NPCs in Path of Exile 2, but also helps too that I'm new to this world and the lore is new to me. So those are just my quick thoughts on this whole thing. I feel like it doesn't always have to be a competition between two different competing games, that leave that to the companies, of the actual games to the way they compete isn't necessarily bad mouthing the other, but it seems like lately maybe now it is, but mostly they do that through the content that they put up. And to have something like this, just a poor Diablo 4, I feel like there's really no need for this. He says that he's not like nice bait, so he's not baiting or trolling or anything like that. He's very serious about this. But I think with anything, if you role play the game, which I tried to do with Diablo 4, but just wasn't getting into it, for Path of Exile 2, I was able to more or less maybe not role play my character to the same extent that I could in like Morrowind or an Elder Scrolls game, Skyrim, but it's a lot more closer to how I was able to role play in the first couple Diablo games, and Diablo 3 is also still entertaining. I don't know how the end game is going to be. I felt like with the first couple ones, the end game just it just revolved around just kind of going back to the same areas and just killing the same monsters over and over again to just grind for different gear. I'm not necessarily going to do that. I'm maybe eventually I have to see what end game looks like, but to me that's not the for me, it's not the point of the game or the main draw. Everyone has, maybe for most folks it's what they like to do and get the best kind of gear, always like trying to grind for Stone of Jordan, SOJs, or I don't know, I can't remember all the different, Wind Force or the different runes to create things like Enigma, and things like that. I feel as if that's just for some folks, that does it for them. But for me, I just want to enjoy this story, and I think if you guys, people who are against Path of Exile 2, give it a try and get in that kind of mindset. Role play your characters, not necessarily trying to follow guides. You can kind of look at them and to get an idea, but I would do that a little bit later. Just try to come up with your own thing, and try not to create the most perfect character. Just kind of create the kind of character you like, that you're trying to role play, even if they aren't the strongest, and thus you pick a wrong skill here and there and it kind of becomes their weakness. It makes characters more interesting, like Storm being claustrophobic, for example, right? You give them some sort of drawback or a weakness. Rogue not being able to make human contact, physical skin-to-skin contact with someone. It makes for more interesting characters, I think. Okay, so that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you.